A bit of housekeeping first. By my count, this is our 200th video on the words of Isaiah, with probably at least another 100 more to come. And even then, we won't begin to glean all the truths of Isaiah's great prophecies. Okay, now chapter 27. Let's read verse 1 using the Bergen Study Bible, which is clearer than the KJV. In that day, the Lord will take a sharp, great, and mighty sword and bring judgment on Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the coiling serpent, and he will slay the dragon of the sea. First, Isaiah says this will happen in that day, meaning in the same day he was speaking of in the previous chapter. And at the end of that chapter, he said, "Enter thou into thy chambers, and hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast." In other words, everything in this chapter will happen when the righteous are hiding for a little moment, waiting for the Lord's indignation and the day of his wrath to end. So we have several characters here: a Leviathan, a serpent, a sea monster, and a dragon. At a minimum, we can say that they're all symbols of chaos and evil in the world. However, the dragon specifically represents Satan. And since Satan will not be subdued until the very end of the day of the Lord, Leviathan almost certainly refers to the Assyrian king in the last days, who will ravage the earth. But Isaiah also mentions a sword. He says that the Lord will use his sword to punish Leviathan. This sword has at least two meanings. It represents the Lord's power of justice both in heaven and on earth, and, as Isaiah often uses it, it represents the Lord's latter-day servant. Elsewhere, Isaiah asks a question about this man. Who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his, the Lord's, foot, and gave the nations before him, and made him rule over kings? He, the Lord, gave them as dust to his sword, and as driven stubble to his bow. And later we hear the servant's own voice clarifying that he, in fact, is the Lord's sword. Listen, O isles, unto me, and hearken, ye people from far. The Lord hath called me from the womb. From the bowels of my mother hath he made mention of my name. And he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand hath he hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver hath he hid me. And again, in chapter 11, that great prophecy about the servant, Isaiah likens this man's mouth to a sharp sword, adding that the servant will smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. But now, here in chapter 27, the tone changes. And in song, Jehovah says that while he's punishing Leviathan with his sword, he's also raising up Zion. In that day sing of the earth as of a delightful vineyard, of which I, Jehovah, am keeper. I water it constantly, watch over it night and day, lest anything be amiss. As we learned back in chapter 5, the Lord's vineyard is the house of Israel. And now we see that the righteous of Israel are gathering in Zion, and the Lord goes on to say, I have no more anger toward her, meaning toward Israel. Should briars and thorns come up within this vineyard, I will ruthlessly attack them and altogether set them ablaze. These briars and thorns are the wicked, even in the covenant, who assault the righteous. The Lord will not only attack them, but will set them ablaze, meaning they'll be completely removed as a threat. But should they, the wicked, take hold of me for a refuge and make peace with me, they shall be reconciled to me. For in days to come, when Jacob takes root and Israel bursts into blossom, the face of the earth shall fill with fruit. In other words, should any of these wicked be converted and make peace with God, he will accept them fully. Then, as we just read, Isaiah finishes this statement with the words, For in days to come, when Jacob takes root and Israel bursts into blossom, the face of the earth shall fill with fruit. This is not only the fruit of the earth, it's also the fruit of Zion. As we learn in the Book of Mormon, and the branches of the natural tree will I graft into the natural branches of the tree, and thus will I bring them together again, that they shall bring forth the natural fruit, and they shall be one. And the Lord had preserved unto himself that the trees had become again the natural fruit, and they became like unto one body. and the fruits were equal. And the Lord of the vineyard had preserved unto himself the natural fruit, which was most precious unto him from the beginning. As we see in modern Revelation, the fruits that become one and equal are the Lord's people in Zion. And the Lord called his people Zion because they were of one heart and one mind, and dwelt in righteousness, and there was no poor among them. So, as people are polarized in the last days, there will be a great dichotomy. As the Assyrian tyrant rages in Babylon, Zion will be raised up by the Lord and his holy servants. And, as we learn, they will be joined by Enoch's people. May we also be among them. Next time, we'll learn more about the briars and thorns who wither in the faith and fall, and how the Lord will deal with them. I'm Curtis Taylor with the Words of Isaiah.